Hey, what's up, Crypto Army? I'm Travis, your crypto newbie, bringing you my experiences so you don't have to learn things the hard way. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. None of my content should be viewed as financial advice. If you like what my content offers, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and turn on notifications so you get notified about new content when I post it. It really helps the channel grow and get the content to others that might like it. So we're going to do a quick recap of EverGrow Coin's AMA today. So first big news today is Bitmart is going forward. And on the screen now I can show you that Bitmart has announced it. So it is official. And if it doesn't happen, it's not because of EverGrow, it's because of Bitmart. So don't blame EverGrow if on the 16th, which is in 2 days, you can't deposit. Or on the 17th, you can't do the trade feature. Or on the 18th, you can't do the withdraw feature. This is exciting because we're finally starting to get more exposure on different exchanges, which means that the price is likely to go up. Again, I can't give you financial advice, but that's normally what happens when you start getting listed on exchanges, is the price starts to go up on these things. Also, we've got 2 more exchanges identified, and the first one is LBank. So LBank is in work, very similar to Bitmart. Now, how Sam described this is because they've done all the hard work with Bitmart, this should go pretty smooth. They've already got everything kind of figured out. Now, LBank's going to have their own process for listing cryptocurrencies, and they're going to have to comply with those requirements, whatever they happen to be. So no guarantees it's going to be tomorrow, the next day, next week, or a month from now. But it's in work and they've announced it. So they're at a point in the process where they feel comfortable about announcing that it's happening, and it will happen. It's just a matter of when. Additionally, we have Coinsbit. Now, I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of Coinsbit before. I haven't used every single exchange that's out there. I really don't have a need for exchanges except for to get money in and get money out of crypto. And Binance and KuCoin do a pretty good job, and FTX on the Solana side. So I don't necessarily need to use every single exchange out there. I'm just being honest here. Yeah, I haven't used every exchange. But I'm pretty sure this is the one that he was talking about was Coinsbit. Now, total, with all these different exchanges they're talking about, that's 15 million people with access to EverGrow coin. 15 million. Now, as we discussed last week, most of these exchanges are not going to work with tokenomics. So there's not going to be a 14% fee, which means you're not going to get any reward distributions. But what you are going to see is volume, and a lot of it, because that's a lot of people. And if every one of these exchanges advertise it like Bitmart does, that's a lot of people potentially looking at this particular token and looking at the price, because a lot of the tokens that are listed on these exchanges are what I would call normal prices. So you're talking pennies and above, not lots of zeros followed by a really low number. So this might be an appealing investment for a lot of those people because they can do essentially what we're doing. They throw a little bit of money at it and see what happens. So maybe it's not 15 million people doing thousands upon thousands of dollars, but maybe it's 15 million people putting $100 or $200 or $300. You can see where I'm going with this is there's a lot of potential growth, because when you look at small numbers and you think at the potential for increase, it's pretty significant. And as this gets listed on more exchanges, we get more volume, the price starts to go up even higher. So even though you're not necessarily going to get a lot of rewards, at least not initially, you are going to see a price increase. And that's always good as well. Even though that doesn't change your rewards, it's nice to have a price increase. So what you do own goes up in value as well. Now, when a lot of these people start buying, and this is how Sam kind of explained it, which makes perfect sense. This is kind of the same thing we said last week and we've been saying over the course of the week, ever since this was announced, is people are going to be curious about the rewards. Most of these people on these exchanges have never used tokens like we're buying here. They've never gotten rewards because the exchanges don't do that. And some of these people have never left the exchange ecosystem. They might find that they want to get rewards, especially when more tweets are out there and the news starts covering people getting all these different rewards and the reflections and potentially thousands of dollars in rewards. That's going to get some media attention, especially as even more of these big exchanges start listing. So this is a good thing for EverGrow coin and for you in particular, because you're going to see an increase in price, at least initially. That's kind of the expectation. No guarantees, but that's the expectation when you start having increased volume and more exchange listings. And down the road, increased rewards. Now, the other aspect of this, all of those tokens that are on these exchanges are excluded from rewards, which means you're probably going to see an increase in rewards also, because it's effectively increasing the size of the burn wallet by the size of how many tokens are inside these exchanges. Again, I don't know what that number is going to be. Hopefully when we start looking at holder addresses, it'll be easy to identify how many tokens are in LBank, how many tokens are in Bitmart, how many tokens are in Coinsbit, and we can start doing the math on what are the rewards going to look like with the burn wallet essentially being that large. Now, they don't always do that. It's not always that clear cut. Hopefully the team will be able to tell us which wallet is which exchange, because that's usually how it looks from our perspective, is a wallet address is the exchange. And generally speaking, they're kind of high on the list, so it's easier to identify them. They're a lot of times on that first page. So if we see random wallets show up on there that are huge, it's a good chance that's an exchange wallet. And that'll be one way to look at it, and we'll just confirm. And then we can start doing the calculations with excluding those and see what happens. But we should see an increase in our rewards as a result of that. So again, all good news. I know it isn't necessarily what we were talking about over the last couple of weeks, but this is good. This is great news, both in terms of price and in terms of your rewards. Now, the other update we got was for Simplex. Now, most of us have seen Simplex now, especially if you watch my how-to video. I'll put a link right here just in case you haven't seen that and you're new to the project. If you've used TrustWallet before, you've probably seen Simplex and MoonPay. Well, Simplex, and I'll be honest here, is generally the one that's not being recommended for use because it's not going to be as good of a purchase for you. But Simplex has agreed to buy directly EverGrow coin. So instead of having to buy Binance Smart Chain and then swapping it into EverGrow coin, you can just buy EverGrow coin directly. That's awesome. And that should save you a little bit of money from not having to do that extra swap. Even though Simplex, generally speaking, I think it's only said that it's more cost effective 2 or 3 times in all the times I've been using TrustWallet. And I use TrustWallet quite a lot. And I have a feeling Simplex, just being able to buy EverGrow coin directly, is going to be a cost savings for all of us, which is good news. Now you might be asking, where can I use this Simplex? Well, hopefully right here. So instead of buy BNB BEP20, well, it might still say that, but it might say buy EverGrow coin. Or it might just say a buy button right there, because you're still going to have other options, not just the Simplex option, but you'll be presented with the option for Simplex, which works in most places. It definitely works in the United States. So if you're in the US, this is definitely going to work for you. Simplex, I think, works in every state. I could be wrong because I haven't been to every state, but I'm pretty sure it does. And you would just go in there directly and buy it after you connect your wallet, which makes it incredibly easy. I don't know that you're going to be able to use TrustWallet and use their version of Simplex to do this purchase. We didn't really cover that. I would hope that if Simplex is going to offer the ability to buy EverGrow coin directly, that it's going to apply everywhere that you use the Simplex button. That would make sense, but that wasn't something that was actually said, so that's an assumption on my part that no matter where you are, Simplex will have the option to buy EverGrow coin. TrustWallet, MetaMask, or right on their website here. Now, they also talked a little bit about Crater. They are taking some feedback they got on the branding. I guess there was some complaints or concerns about the branding, so they're going to take a look at that. I think they mentioned the logo specifically. I haven't seen a lot of complaining about the branding. I didn't really see much of an issue with it. Actually, I kind of understood where they were coming from, but they're taking that on board, and they're going to take a look at potentially rebranding to make sure that the first impressions for all potential users is good, and it's a positive one. And people want to come and use that platform. So they're going to take a look at that. Again, they take your feedback to heart and are trying to make this the best product they can. Because if the community does well, they do well. Now, one thing they did talk a little bit about a couple different times through this thing was arbitrage. And I had a couple questions about this as well. I don't want to speculate. Now, they've mentioned that the price on the exchange is going to be higher than the price on the decentralized exchanges. It does present arbitrage options and opportunities where you could potentially move money around and come out ahead. I have trouble believing that there's going to be a 14-15% difference between them, but maybe there is. And that's something, if you want to exploit arbitrage, that would be something you might want to take a look at. I thought it was a little bit better from a different perspective. So imagine that you're buying in Trust Wallet and you're paying that 14% fee. So you've already paid that. And we've all already paid that. Now, if we send it to the exchange for a 14% loss, but the exchange is about 14% higher, we don't lose anything. We end up essentially right where we need to be. So we might lose maybe a 1% or 2%, but not necessarily the full 14% is kind of where I'm going with this. Now, most exchanges have the ability to withdraw fiat. You see where I'm going with this? So potentially, whatever your current value is in Trust Wallet or in MetaMask, you could potentially transfer it to an exchange that allows for withdrawal into fiat and not lose anything. That's an awesome capability to be able to do, because I know a lot of us are thinking we're going to lose 14% if we try to withdraw this into fiat. And even worse, it's going to be swaps, because you got to have it in, Binance Smart Chain or BNB, and it's just a mess. But if I can get it over to an exchange that supports it, depending on what that exchange's process is, you can get it over to fiat, potentially for a very small fee, because generally fees on an exchange are pretty small. They're generally 0.25 or right around there. So it's a very minor fee, but that's a great option. So I'm not opposed. I kind of hope that there is a 14% gap, because I would prefer not to lose 14% when I send my EverGrow coin over to an exchange, because now I don't have to necessarily do the swap inside the wallet. But those are things to kind of look at, is the ability to do that. Now, I'm not implying sell your EverGrow coin. I'm just saying that down the road, if you decide you want to sell, you might have a good option to do that. Now, don't worry. I do plan on doing content for all of these different scenarios in the coming months. It's not something I'm going to do this week or next week. Probably sometime next year is when I'm going to knock these out, once the channel has grown a little bit more. Now, for the last part of this video, there was a little bit of FUD in a video that came out yesterday, the day before. When I reviewed that, there was most of the FUD videos out there are ridiculous. And I actually give one example in this video. There are people that have channels dedicated just to tearing down projects. I don't completely understand it. I don't understand what they get out of it, but they get a lot of viewers, and the YouTube algorithm sends them to the top of the list. So when somebody's looking at EverGrow coin, sometimes that's what they're getting, is a lot of people that are saying don't buy this because of X, Y, or Z. And some of the examples are just ridiculous. A subscriber sent me an email and asked a question about this one video I took a look at, and it was all kinds of just ridiculous things that had nothing to do with the fundamentals of the project. And if you followed any of the information that was presented in at least that particular video, you would never invest in any crypto. And some of the projects that that particular YouTuber endorsed had all the same issues. So I don't know what the rationale is for trying to tear down a project with really, really ridiculous examples of why not to invest in something. But yeah, let me know in the comments, or shoot me an email if you run into things like that, or if you've got concerns that somebody has raised. And I'll try to answer those, or if I don't know the answer, I'll go ask and get back to you on the answer. But I saw that video and I was concerned that it was going to take off like crazy, because again, that particular YouTuber has a higher algorithm than I do, or than some of the other people that present content for this channel. So if he's at the top and we're below, generally people look at the first thing, especially if it says don't invest in this, or it's a scam, or it's a rug pull. And that's going to influence people's decisions to buy into this project, and they're getting bad information. And sometimes it's not always clear that it's bad information, especially if you're new. You don't know what to look for in a crypto project. And that's why I try to present a logical approach to a fundamental analysis on things that kind of matter, and I explain why they matter. And again, there might be other things, but some of these FUDsters that bring out this information, it's just ridiculous information. But I'm just going to play the actual question that I asked and then Sam's response along with the team's response to that particular issue, because it's better just to hear it from them than from me, to be honest with you. And they did a really good job of explaining what it was. But if you went to that video, you were presented with this, which is essentially the BSC scan and the contract information. And this particular thing right here, swap enabled, was listed as false. Not true. Right now it's true, but at the time it was false. And that YouTuber made a big deal over, this is proof that this is a rug pull. And I'll be honest, I don't know what all of these aspects equate to. I mean, swap is pretty clear cut, but there's different aspects of the swap for this particular token, and it could have been a couple different things. So I wanted to be precise. I went through and looked at the contract, but contracts, when they're written, aren't numerically in order, so it's not always apparent exactly which function you're looking at when you're looking at a contract. And there's quite a few mentions of swap throughout it because, again, there's a lot of different swap functions inside the contract. So it was better just to ask the question here, get a legitimate answer from the actual team that's responsible for the contract and the project in general. That way you've got the accurate information and not some bad information from somebody that just wants to tear down the project. So with that, let's go ahead and hit the play button and we will watch this interaction.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I really love this project, and I've been a big supporter of it for quite a while now. I love what you guys are doing with the project moving forward and the exchanges, and I'm kind of curious myself to see how Creator works just from a YouTuber perspective. But you mentioned a little bit about the FUD, and I've been getting quite a few questions just because some of the people that do the FUD out there have a higher YouTube algorithm, so their content seems to come up a little bit faster than ours that are, talking more about the actual project versus the size of your white paper not being hundreds of pages long. Apparently, that's an indication that you're a rug pull these days. But there was one specific thing that I couldn't necessarily address just because I don't completely understand what happened with it myself. I'm kind of hoping you guys can address it before it turns into FUD that goes widespread. I've already got a couple questions on it. And this is about the swap feature being turned off for a period of time. And I was kind of hoping you might be able to address that. I think it was a couple days ago.
Yeah, I think because Paul brought that to me in a private chat, and I gave him the yes. So that's how we distribute BUSD rewards, and it was actually the final audit from Bitmart that they needed to understand it, so they went deep into the code. So effectively, for once, Praveen's probably better at explaining this, and I'll pass it to him if I don't do a very good job.
Yeah.
But Praveen, do you
Can
want to explain how?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you go for it. You're better at this side.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So the swap feature, like how it works is like there's a threshold value which is defined. Suppose like 50 billion tokens are like once stored in the contract will automatically sell. So what we were doing is like we have randomized that value. Like we have automated this process. Like right now, like if once it's always enabled, then whenever the value will reach, it will automatically sell. So everyone was like, they know that when the contract will sell. So what we did was like we automated it. Like it was always false, but whenever the threshold value was like it reaches, it was automatically set to true and the contract would sell.
Just to explain, this is to sell. This is to sell to buy BUSD for distribution. I think we missed that part. So the contract has to sell coins in order to buy the BUSD, which then gets transferred into the distribution part of the contract. If that function could never be enabled, then you'd never get any rewards. And as Praveen said there, we didn't want it to be manipulated so people would go, oh, the contract's about to sell for rewards, because the contract has to sell the coins that it's gathered up to convert them to BUSD. So we removed it from being set to being more randomized, so people couldn't go, there's going to be a short red candle here because the contract's about to sell, X amount of coins for BUSD. So that's why that function's there. But I will say that was one of the things that Bitmart identified. There were 2 audits, so we passed the first audit immediately, there were no problems, and then Bitmart said, what's this function here, we need to understand it more, and we went back and forward with them, and they basically turned around and said, no, it's absolutely fine, it's secure. Obviously that's an extra reassurance for people, is that obviously Bitmart and the other exchanges do go through a lot of due diligence to get those things. So just to simplify it, that function will be enabled randomly when certain thresholds are reached, to sell the coins that need to be sold to buy BUSD for distribution. So hopefully, and again,
yeah, right now like it's set to true because we have like once Bitmart finished their audit, we set it to true.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, so it will continue to do that. But you know, fair enough for people spotting it. But it's not anything that's a security problem or an issue, or it wouldn't have got through the Bitmart audit.
So I thought it would be more beneficial to hear directly from the team explain it, because just like Sam had to pass it off, it's a fairly complicated thing to explain, but it makes sense, right? And this is actually something there's been rug pulls out there that time specific events, and somehow they're able to hijack those events when they happen, so they need to be randomized. And that's really what they were trying to do, is just protect the transaction from having problems, because if they can predict when it's going to happen, somehow you can interject yourself as a third party and take that transaction or take it over in some way, shape, or form. Again, I'm not a hacker, so I don't fully understand how somebody would do that, but I've heard that before with other projects that it has happened like that. So again, they're just trying to make sure that the contract is secure. And again, it's not FUD. It's not a real issue of any kind. But there's a YouTuber out there that has been passing that as proof that this is a rug pull. And you don't normally see projects that are rug pulls get listed on exchanges, because it doesn't look good for an exchange. So not only has this project been through multiple audits, but Bitmart did 2 different audits on the contract themselves just to make sure everything was legit also. So, and I suspect every exchange that looks at this project is probably going to do the same thing. That's just my guess, because each exchange is its own company. They're going to do their own due diligence to make sure that everything's on the up and up for their investors. No different than EverGrow is doing everything they can to protect us as investors in their token. So hopefully that answered the questions you might have about it. If you do have any questions, let me know. I can explain it a little bit better in an email or in a response on a comment than verbalizing it, because I can take my time to do it the right way. They did a really good job on explaining it, and hopefully that makes sense to everybody. But that's going around, and next thing you know, you're going to start hearing about it. So I wanted to be preemptive to make sure that we don't have people sell out of their positions and lose their 14% for bad information. That's incredibly annoying when that happens, because you're getting bad information. There's no FUD that I'm aware of that makes any kind of sense regarding this particular project. And if you've watched the team or watched any of the AMAs, you would know that. And I think you could hear there as well. They're happy to answer legitimate FUD questions that are out there. Like, this is one of those ones where it's not the number of pages in a white paper. Like, that's kind of ridiculous, as well as a lot of the other things from that particular video. But this one was a valid, hey, we don't know a lot about contracts. And at the same time, or around the same time, there were some issues with swapping. But most of us understood that that was just a Binance issue. All BEP20 tokens were having problems across the board with everything BEP20. I was getting a lot of comments about issues with doing swaps, whether it's buys or sells. And we all made the leap that there's just something with BEP20 because the traffic's too much, or everybody's jumping ship from Ethereum. Take your explanation, but I thought they did a really good job answering it, and hopefully that answers the question for you as well. Now, that's all I want to cover. This video went way longer than it was supposed to, but this was important, I thought, for you all to hear. That way, when you run into this, or if you run into it in another video, then you'll understand what that was, because it's definitely not an issue. Until next time, stay strong with those diamond hands. Crypto Newbie here to tell you how you can get $2,340 in free stocks. All the links I use in this video are in the description. Sign up for Webull and get 2 free stocks valued up to $2,300. Your first stock is free automatically. Deposit any amount and you get your second stock. Deposit 1 penny and you get your second stock. Total value could be up to $2,300. Generally $5 per stock is what you get. Next, we have block fee. Get $10 in Bitcoin just for signing up. But read the fine print. I've got a rewards account. You'll get $40 in Bitcoin, as will I. So you know exactly what I'm going to get and what you're going to get. You do need to deposit $100 to get your $40 in Bitcoin. That's the overview how to get $2,340 just by signing up for accounts.